I'm Sunne, here talking about visible mending today. We are going to be doing a patch similar to this and talking about why we want our patch to be so big when our hole is so small. I'm going to go through the things that you might need to do the mending. Having really good, really sharp needles. I love these tulip Sashiko needles. They're a little bit longer so you can stack your stitches on the needle, which makes it a little bit faster. Depending on your fabric, you'll either want to use a Sashiko thread or this button and craft thread from Alabama Shannon also is a really great option. It just helps to stabilize your fabric a little bit. There's two amazing books that I've used for my mending. One is Mending Matters, and this is really mostly about mending and how to make patches and make really successful patches. And then Make and Mend, I love because it's how to make your patches beautiful. So we all want our patches to be beautiful, right? Let's go ahead and get started and get our supplies together. Okay, getting started, we've got our piece that we're mending that has the hole that we're gonna fix, and we have a patch. I have my patch already pinned here and was starting to baste, but just wanna show you really quick. I'm using quilting cotton for my patching, mostly because it's cute and I wanna see something fun when it comes through the fabric. So what I've done is I've taken it and I've folded it and pressed it on a really high heat so it has a good press. And then I cut off my corners to just get rid of some bulk, and then I pressed my two shorter sides in. Now I've got this on the back here. It's already pinned. I want my cute side facing up, and I want my corners facing in so that they won't fray as this is being worn. If I was patching this with the quilting cotton on the outside, I'd want to go ahead and have my ironing be the other direction. Now we're going to baste our patch to our fabric. I'm going to go ahead and pull my pin out. And this is where I'm going to use my hands to really feel what I have going on here. I'm using a really big stitch for basting, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, and just some scrap thread that I'm going to toss so it doesn't matter if it's cotton or polyester or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and this is just going to hold my patch in place. What we want to do is clean up our center space that we're patching. You can see that there's kind of, I don't know, some little guys hanging out here. And what we want to do is get rid of that and make it a nicer, more even space to mend. I'm going to make this a little bit more rectangular just because it's kind of easy to do. And I'm going to go ahead and just cut and open up the space. And you can make it oval, you can make it rectangular, whatever works for you. Go ahead and cut it a little bit more open. And once I have my rectangle, I'm not going to be able to put it under without making some cuts because it won't be very even and it's going to kind of grab. Usually what I do is I'll just cut each edge just a little tiny bit, about 1/8 of an inch, just do a little snip. And that will make it so when I iron this back, because I'm going to iron this underneath, that it's really, really clean and it allows everything to sit really nice and flat. I want to give you some quick little thread tips. One of the things when we're looking at threading a needle, if the end of the thread is cut at an angle, so if I'm going to cut it, I'm going to kind of cut it at an angle, it will make it much easier to thread the needle. I'm not sure if you can see that there's a little bit of a tip there. The other thing is if you're using the button craft thread or any thread, if you thread it while it's still on the spool, once the needle is threaded, you cut it off. It's generally easier to do. Once you've cut it off the spool, it relaxes a little bit and some of that tension comes out and loosens in the thread. If you're using the Sashiko thread, first of all, it comes in a round, and what we want to do is just snip one end. For this purpose, I'm usually using a single strand, so this is about twice as long as I need, because we always want our thread to be no longer than our elbow. And that just makes it easier to manage and makes your thread work a little bit better as we're going. Now I've got my needle threaded. I'm gonna go ahead and love my thread a few times. And this just helps to make your thread a little bit easier to use. And now we're gonna go ahead and do a knot. I'm just gonna do a loop and bring my tails through. Super easy. Usually I'll do 2 knots, which just makes it a little more secure. If you only do 1, it's probably fine. Now we're gonna get back to our swatch. So I've taken my hole that we cut and I've cleaned it up a little bit, and then I went ahead and just ironed it under. So I've got about 1/4 of an inch under all the way around. And now I'm gonna go ahead, knot on the bottom, and bring it up. I usually start at a corner. I don't know why. And I will go ahead and do this about halfway back. And I'm gonna go through, and we're just gonna do a quick whip stitch around the hole. And that's gonna just sort of stabilize everything, and it's gonna keep the hole from starting to fray again. And to be honest, I love the way it looks. You can mark this if you want to, if you'd like your stitches to be more precise and be sort of a more even measurement or be a certain height. Feel free to pull out a ruler and mark it. I love the freeform look of this. So I'm just gonna do it. And if some stitches are a little longer or a little shorter, I'm great with that. I want everyone to know that I did the mending. Okay, so I have my whip stitch finished around my hole. I'm really happy with how that looks. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna secure my patch along the outside. I've went ahead and I marked this 1/4 of an inch going across because I'm gonna do just a fun straight stitch going across. When I'm stitching this, I wanna go ahead, I am gonna follow my lines. I'm gonna try not to go through my basting thread because I wanna pull it out. I don't need that pink there forever. And I'm gonna just kind of keep going across. I'd like to have a little more thread showing on the top than underneath. So just cruising along. I'm not gonna think too much about it, and I'm gonna load a few stitches up onto my needle every single time before I pull through. And then I'm gonna be really careful when I'm pulling that everything gets nice and flattened out. Because you're gonna get a little bit of wave with the fabric, but you shouldn't be getting a ton of wave with the fabric. So we wanna get it as flat as possible. When I get to the end of my row, I'm gonna just go ahead and jump up to the next row. And in general, this one only has one direction. We're just going straight across and straight across. If I was gonna do a cross and I was gonna go up as well, I would do all the straight across, and then I would do all the up and down. Guys, just kind of cruising across and cruising across. And again, using my hand to feel and make sure I'm hitting the very edge of my patch across the back. When I get to the corner, I just want to make sure I really get to the corner, so that's going to keep it really secure where it folds over itself. And come on. And I'm going to flatten everything out. On my basting threads, I did put a little knot, but you can see it's way up here. At this point, I can cut it off, and I can just pull that thread out really easily. It's just gonna kind of pop out all the way back, and it's fun to take it out. So I got to the corner and I'm right at my edge. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do the outline of my whole patch first, and then I'm gonna fill in my center pieces. I'm right at my corner and I'm gonna go up and just keep going up. When I'm starting to get low on thread, which I am right here, you don't wanna get too tight. I'm gonna go ahead and push this guy through, and then I'm gonna finish it off with the same knot that we started with. Again, a loop through, and tighten it up, and a loop, bring it through, and I always use my nail to tighten it up. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just cut my ends. I do usually leave my ends 1/2, 3/4 of an inch long. Just don't make them super, super short, or they will start to eventually work their way out. Having that 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch will just keep them a little bit more stable. Once I've done my entire outline around, we'll go back and do our center and do all these little center guys. Here we have our finished patch, and we've done all the stitching in the middle. I tend to, again, like it a little more freeform, so I don't manage where my stitches are and make sure they stack, but if you want to, you are absolutely welcome to do that. I did this other little fun swatch over here. This is definitely a heavier denim. This is a great method for working on denim. And then I played with the spacing a little bit. These little X's are obviously much closer together. They're about 1/4 inch apart, where these guys are about 1/2 inch apart. I actually really like the 1/4 inch ones a little bit better. I'll probably pull those out, but it's really fun to have that flexibility to know that you can try a few designs and that this grid, I don't know if you can see the grid that's been chalked on here, that this grid will work really well for trying things, and you can try a few things and it'll still be there. I'm just gonna finish this guy off. And again, we'll just knot it across the back, and you can see one of the things I did do intentionally was I really liked the space between the edge of the patch and where the design started. So I made sure that on a lot of the corners, we had a little bit of space there, a little breathing room for the stitching. If you're looking at these two swatches, we've got different weights of fabric and different weights of thread. I used the Sashiko thread on this one. This is a single strand of thread because the fabric was really heavy. I love the way that it worked out, and you can see that you get a really nice pop of white. On this black one, I went ahead and used the Alabama Shannon thread, and I did double it, but you can see that it's much more subtle, even doubled. Think about the piece that you're mending and how you want things to look in the end. Both of them are gonna do pretty much the same thing. I do like the Sashiko thread with denim a lot because it is 100% cotton. It's gonna kind of stretch and shrink a little bit with your jeans as you wear them. That really makes this my go-to for doing denim, where the Alabama Shannon I often do for lighter things, just to try to keep it a little bit lighter. It also has a little more of a freeform look because it's the two strands and they're not perfectly together all the time. And if you want to see a few things that I've done, that I've used in real life, I have some denim that I can show you. This is a pair of overalls, and it's got a lot of different types of patching. I did do the holes and patched them underneath. These have had about 3 years of wear now. You can see everything's really holding up. I did double my Sashiko thread on these guys. It was a little tough on my hands, but I love the way it looks and I love how it really pops. And then I have this pair of jeans that I did as well. I like to joke that I'm keeping them video ready at this time. These guys I used the Sashiko thread again. I doubled the white, but the blue I just used as a single. And then I used quilting cotton as the underneath panel so that if they wear or as they wear, you get some little pops of color, which I think is kind of fun. I also did some of the fronts just to keep the knees from ripping too much. I went ahead and did those guys. These I did put an interfacing on the back of just to keep them a little bit stronger. Think about it, if you have iron-on interfacing, you can put that over the patch. You just want to be careful because it can make it really thick, and you want to do it after all of your stitching is complete. I hope you had fun. I hope you're going to try some visible mending, and I look forward to seeing more patched jeans.